Today, we're diving into a new academic paper that is asking some really big questions about the future of school, especially now, in the age of AI. It argues that pretty much everything, from how we teach to how we grade, is on the verge of a massive shift. And it all kicks off with one really bold statement. Yep, you heard that right. The central idea here is that the report card, with its A's and F's, along with all the standardized tests we've gotten used to, is basically on its way out. Why? Because generative AI isn't just another gadget for the classroom. It's making us stop and ask a really fundamental question. What is the point of school anyway? So before we can really get into where we're headed, we have to take a hard look at where we are right now. The way our schools are set up, well, it's largely a relic of the 20th century. It was designed for a world that, let's be honest, just doesn't exist anymore. And this slide just lays it all out, doesn't it? On the left, you've got the old model. Math is in one box, history is in another. It's all about memorizing facts and bubbling in answers on a test. But on the right, you have what the real world actually asks of us today, solving complex problems that cross disciplines, thinking creatively, and actually doing something with what you know. There's a huge gap there. Okay, so if the mismatch is so obvious, why haven't we changed already? Well, it's not that simple, and the paper's really fair about this. For years, there have been some very real worries. Fears that if you mix subjects, students won't get deep skills in any one of them. Or that teachers just aren't trained for this kind of thing and that crucial information might get skipped. These are totally valid concerns. All right, so if the system's been stuck for so long, what's different now? What's the big game changer? Well, it's this powerful new catalyst that can help us finally leap over those old hurdles. Generative AI. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, what is generative AI? Put simply, it's not just about finding information that already exists. It's tech that can create totally new things. It learns from a mind-boggling amount of data and can then generate original text, pictures, or even computer code from scratch. And this is the key. We have to stop thinking about AI as just a tool for research or, let's be real, a way for students to cheat. The real magic of GAI in education is its incredible ability to act as a bridge. It can connect the dots between completely different subjects, like finding the links between history and data science or biology and art. And that ability to be a bridge is what suddenly makes a powerful but historically difficult teaching model not just possible, but practical. And that model is called the integrated curriculum. So, remember those subject silos we just talked about? An integrated curriculum, or IC, basically just knocks down those walls. Instead of teaching math for an hour, then English, it organizes learning around big, real-world questions or projects, pulling in whatever knowledge is needed from any subject to solve the problem. And when you do that, the whole point of school changes. It's not about memorizing a bunch of facts anymore. The real goal becomes developing these 4 skills, what people often call the 4 C's. These are the skills that really matter in a world where you can look up any fact in a second, but what you do with that fact is everything. Okay, I know what you're probably thinking. This all sounds great, but does it actually work? Is there any proof? Well, the paper didn't just throw this idea out there. It reviewed 22 recent studies to see what the data says, and honestly, the results are kind of mind-blowing. Get this, in just one of these AI-powered programs, a group of over 25,000 students generated more than 75,000 unique, creative ideas. This wasn't just busy work, it was a genuine explosion of new thinking. And it wasn't just brainstorming. In that same study, the number of actual innovative works that students produced, we're talking things that won national awards or even led to patent applications, that number jumped by 300%. And check out what happened to those 4 C skills we mentioned. This chart is incredible. It shows students' scores on these skills before and after being in an integrated program. Look at those jumps. Critical thinking, communication, collaboration, they all took a massive leap forward. These are real, measurable gains. Okay, one last stop for you, and it's a stunner. In one project, a group of high school students used machine learning to create a virtual pH meter. Their AI models ended up being 5.5 times more accurate than a person just visually interpreting the results. I mean, these are high schoolers doing legitimate, high-level science. So the evidence is pretty overwhelming that changing how we teach can have a huge impact. But here's the thing. If you change the game, you absolutely have to change the scoreboard. You can't keep measuring success the old way. Which leads us to the million-dollar question, right? If we're going to move away from individual grades and bubble tests, what do we replace them with? How do we know if anyone is actually learning anything? And this is where the paper proposes a really fascinating solution. It's a new framework called the Originality and Creativity Index, or OCI. The whole idea is to shift the focus away from individual test scores and instead evaluate collaborative student projects based on how original, creative, and, this is the big one, how much of a real-world impact they have. So how does it work? Well, the OCI is basically built on 4 pillars. First, it looks at the critical thinking skills the students used. Second, how well did they communicate their solution? Third, how did they build networks and work as a team? And finally, it measures the actual quantifiable impact their project had on a real community. And this quote from the paper just perfectly captures the new mindset. It says, "Success isn't about what a student can spit back on a test. True success is whether a school has sparked a genuine curiosity, a passion that makes a student want to keep learning for the rest of their life."
Now, let's be real. A shift this big is not going to happen overnight. The paper is very clear about the challenges that lie ahead, but the good news is it also points to solutions that are backed by research.
The big hurdles are probably the ones you're already thinking of. We need to get teachers the right kind of training. We have to deal with the digital divide so every student has access. We need to tackle systemic problems like teacher burnout. And just figuring out how to grade group projects fairly, that's a tough one. But here's the hopeful part. For each of these problems, research shows a way forward. Things like making sure teacher training is about how to teach with these tools, not just which buttons to click. Or rolling out changes in phases, letting enthusiastic teachers lead the charge. And best of all, actually using AI to make teachers' lives easier and save them time. So in the end, it all comes down to this one simple question. In a world that's being reshaped by artificial intelligence, what do we value more? Should we continue to measure what our students are able to remember? Or is it time we start measuring what they're able to create? The answer to that is going to define the future of learning.